Hey, hi, hello. Welcome to Diana Emerson. Today we're listening to the heartbreaking case of the Justine Abshir. Attributing her condition to allergies. True crime. During her UVA master's degree class, colleagues encountered her again. She arrived 30 minutes late, wearing sunglasses indoors. When the class concluded at 7 p.m., Justine departed promptly. Little did her coworkers know that this would mark the final time they would ever see her. At 1:57 a.m., a distressing 911 call reported a hit and run on Taylorsville Road in Barboursville, Virginia. Upon arrival, the police found Eric in a state of hysteria, cradling his lifeless wife, Justine, in the middle of the road. Tragically, it was evident that Justine had sustained fatal injuries from a motor vehicle impact. Eric recounted to the police that Justine had called him at 1:19 a.m., informing him of her car breakdown and requesting assistance. She was approximately 5 miles away from their residence. Responding swiftly, Eric hopped on his motorcycle and reached the location she specified, only to discover her lying in the road. In his efforts to aid Justine, Eric sat with her, covering her with his jacket, before embarking on a search for assistance. He approached several nearby houses, knocking on doors in an attempt to find help. The call to 911 was eventually made by one of the homeowners at 1:57 a.m. Eric later admitted to the police that he had his cell phone in his pocket, though he hadn't initially realized it. While on paper at first, the scene appeared like a hit-and-run case. That view changed very quickly. The police investigation unveiled a lack of typical evidence associated with a hit-and-run on Taylorsville Road in Barboursville, Virginia. Notably, there were no broken glass, skid marks, tire marks, debris, or blood on Justine or her clothing, despite the severe injuries she sustained. This absence led authorities to believe that her death wasn't a result of a random collision, but rather a deliberate act. Further complicating the situation, the police discovered that Justine's car, despite Eric's assertion of mechanical issues, was in working order with no defects found. This inconsistency raised suspicions about the accuracy of Eric's account. Justine was very close to her parents, Heidi and Stephen Swartz, and her sister Lauren Swartz, and they were devastated when they received a call from Eric's brother, notifying them that Justine was dead. Their shock and devastation turned to confusion. They knew Justine well. She was afraid of the dark. She was even described as being afraid of her own shadow, so it made no sense to them that she would choose to drive alone at night. The perplexity deepened when considering the circumstances of her body being discovered 600 feet away from her car, which contained her purse, coat, and keys. This raised questions about why she would leave these belongings and walk away from the vehicle, especially when she had called Eric to come and collect her. Only 2 days after Justine's memorial service, a significant revelation unfolded. Heidi, Justine's mother, entered a restaurant and, overwhelmed with emotion, broke down. Sensing her distress, a compassionate restaurant employee offered assistance, prompting Heidi to share the heartbreaking story of Justine, describing her as the kindergarten teacher who had been fatally struck by a car. To Heidi's shock, the woman revealed a startling truth. Justine had not died in a hit-and-run. She had been murdered, and suspicion pointed to her husband, Eric, as the prime suspect. It transpired that some people believed that Eric was involved in Justine's death. When questioned by the police, Eric presented an account of the evening, asserting its normalcy. According to him, Justine returned home after 7 p.m., having attended her class, and he arrived shortly after. He mentioned being with Justine for a while until he received a call from Martha Jefferson Hospital, where his ailing mother was. The call conveyed the distressing news of his mother's deteriorating condition. Eric told police that he went back to the hospital and was there until 11:30 p.m. He did not go straight home after the hospital. Instead, he went to their storage unit on Route 33 in Ruckversville. He stored his motorcycle there. Eric left his car at the storage unit and took the motorcycle out and went riding. He told police that he wanted to clear his head. According to Eric's account, he returned home around 12:30 a.m. At that time, Justine was awake and eager to talk. However, an argument ensued between them as Justine wished to discuss his mother's health, a topic Eric was reluctant to address. He conveyed to the police that he expressed the need for some solitude, and in response, Justine allegedly remarked, "Well, maybe I need to be alone too." According to Eric, Justine departed and drove away in her 2002 Ford Mustang. Eric informed the police that he wasn't concerned, anticipating Justine's return, and casually watched television. His next contact with Justine occurred at 1:19 a.m., when he received an angry call from her. She explained that her car had broken down and requested him to pick her up, providing the exact location. He mentioned that it took him around 15 minutes to leave the house after receiving Justine's call, as he needed to put on his shoes, grab his jacket, keys, and helmet. Eric asserted that he located her between 1:39 a.m. and 1:44 a.m. The police found Eric's account suspicious, especially when considering the crime scene and Justine's injuries. This led them to launch a comprehensive investigation into the circumstances surrounding Justine's death. It would take 4 years, but police finally had enough to officially charge Eric. He was charged with the first-degree murder of his wife. The prosecution asserted that Eric committed the murder with the motive of wanting to end his marriage and for financial gain. The court was informed that in the months leading up to the incident in November, Justine underwent a significant transformation. She ceased meeting with friends, ignored calls, and even declined a friend's housewarming gift of flowers, citing Eric's prohibition on accepting gifts. The prosecution contended that Justine was killed at a different location and then placed on the road where she was discovered, all part of Eric's plan to stage a hit and run. Their argument posited that this was orchestrated to secure a $1.5 million insurance payout. According to the prosecution, the nature of Justine's injuries contradicted the hypothesis of a vehicular collision. She sustained 113 blunt trauma injuries, including multiple broken bones, lacerated organs, and 23 head wounds. Strikingly, there was minimal blood at the scene. Testimonies from 2 medical examiners, presented by the prosecution, challenged the notion that Justine's death resulted from being hit by a car while standing on the road. Instead, they argued that she was subjected to a brutal assault, strangulation, and subsequently run over after death. Dr. Todd Lukasevic, who conducted Justine's autopsy, testified that his findings aligned with manual strangulation. He identified deep tissue bruising in the neck muscles and hemorrhages in the eye and lip. He testified that Justine suffered numerous severe internal injuries. Some wounds did not bleed, and this indicated that they were caused after Justine was already dead. He said that he found less than half the blood he would have expected pooled in her chest and abdominal cavities. The second medical examiner highlighted that the average female body typically contains 5 liters of blood, yet less than 1 liter was recovered from Justine. This inconsistency, according to the prosecution, did not align with the scarcity of blood found on the road, supporting their argument that she was killed at a different location. Allison Crawford, who dated Eric in high school and was the mother of his 2 children, testified that less than 2 hours before Eric discovered Justine on the road, he inquired about their future together. There were 43 calls between them that day, during which Eric expressed lingering feelings for Allison. In court, Allison stated, "He asked if there was any chance for our relationship," revealing Eric's admission of regret for marrying Justine. Another witness testified on behalf of the prosecution. Cecil Roebuck said that he was on the side roads of Greene County late that night in search of a school bus. He told the court he was unfamiliar with the roads, so pulled his car into a driveway to turn around. Cecil claimed that a man approached him and told him his wife's car was almost out of gas. He asked Cecil to follow him to a gas station, but before they reached the gas station, the man pulled his car over and told Cecil that he ran out of gas too. He asked Cecil for a lift back to his house, and he obliged. Cecil said that he did not connect the incident with Justine's case, until he saw a program about Justine's death 2 years later. He told the court he believed the man was Eric, and he had helped him stage the hit and run, albeit unbeknown to him at the time. The court was apprised of Eric's financial challenges during the proceedings. Testifying before the court, Justine's father, Steve Swartz, revealed that his daughter was the primary credit holder for the couple, and at the time of her death, they were burdened with a debt of $85,000. Insurance claims adjusters provided testimony concerning several policies with Eric as the beneficiary. Less than a fortnight after Justine's passing, Eric submitted an uninsured motorist claim that, if approved, would have entitled him to $100,000, with the potential for an additional $1.5 million if the commercial aspect was sanctioned. Notably, Justine's name was listed on the insurance for one of the dumpster trucks. In 2009, Eric filed for bankruptcy, ultimately receiving $330,000, which was utilized to settle outstanding debts. This financial backdrop added a crucial dimension to the court's understanding of the case. During the trial, some evidence was presented in the absence of the jury, including allegations of an affair Eric supposedly had a month before his wedding and just 3 days after Justine's death. Additionally, it was suggested that he possessed explicit photos of a woman, but tore them up to avoid negative perceptions. The prosecution argued that Eric's cell phone records contradicted his claim of being at Martha Jefferson Hospital when he asserted, suggesting he was actually at home during critical periods. This, according to the prosecution, provided him with ample time to commit the crime. They told the jury that there were 2 periods late in the evening and into the following morning that were of particular importance, from 10:04 p.m. to 11:23 p.m. and from 12:08 a.m. to 1:19 a.m., when a call from Justine's phone came in. The cell phone records showed that he was at home and not at the hospital at that time. The prosecution underscored to the jury that Eric's use of his phone 157 times on the day of the incident made his claim of only realizing his cell phone was in his pocket after finding Justine's body highly implausible. Furthermore, the prosecution pointed out Eric's background as a Marine with CPR and first aid training, emphasizing that despite this training, he allegedly made no attempt to assist Justine. Adding a compelling and unsettling detail, the prosecution disclosed that Eric had a derogatory nickname for Justine, calling her Thing. The defense steadfastly argued that Justine's death resulted from a hit-and-run accident. They maintained that Eric's alibi was solid, asserting that he was at Martha Jefferson Hospital until 11:30 p.m. visiting his mother, and subsequently went to a storage unit to retrieve his motorcycle. The defense contended that the timeline presented by the prosecution did not allow sufficient time for Eric to both kill Justine and stage a hit and run. In support of their claim of a happy marriage, the defense presented Eric's brother as a witness who had lived with the couple for a period. He testified to the genuine happiness in Eric and Justine's relationship, emphasizing his positive interactions with Justine. To challenge the prosecution's case, the defense cast doubt on the credibility of witness Cecil. They believed he was motivated by the $50,000 reward for information offered by Justine's parents and was hoping to receive favorable treatment in relation to 2 felony fraud charges he was facing from a $10,000 debt. The defense aimed to undermine Cecil's reliability as a witness, questioning his intentions and potential biases. Despite the defense's efforts to challenge the case, including claims about the medical examiner's alleged omission of a specific procedure, the jury ultimately found Eric guilty of first-degree murder. The decision was reached based on the evidence presented during the trial, which included the prosecution's arguments about the nature of Justine's injuries, the timeline of events, and Eric's actions. As a result of the guilty verdict, Eric was sentenced to life in prison. During Eric's sentencing hearing, the court heard poignant victim impact statements, including one from Justine's sister Lauren. Her sister Lauren said, "For the 7 years before she was killed by Eric, I watched my sister's life start to fade. She became quiet, withdrawn. She became poor. She became scared. She became the victim of domestic violence, which I saw with my own eyes." In hindsight, I feel like I watched her die. Lauren's testimony during the sentencing hearing portrayed a distressing picture of the relationship between Eric and Justine. She asserted that she witnessed Eric physically shove Justine before they were married, and Justine confided in her about several other incidents of abuse. In the months leading up to that November day, Justine's family and friends noticed a change in her personality. Justine had always been kind, loving, and friendly, and while she still had those qualities, she stopped meeting friends and colleagues for social visits. She was withdrawn and quiet, a shell of her former self. The testimony further revealed that Justine, influenced by a sense of worthlessness, made considerable efforts to please Eric. Even on their wedding day, there were signs of discord. Eric was distant, opting to go out on his motorcycle alone. Justine missed several activities related to her own wedding, including lunch, and spent the second night alone at the hotel. Notably, Eric's violent past was brought to light during the hearing. He had previously faced charges of malicious wounding, and was the subject of a protective order by the mother of his 2 children. Eric claimed this arose from a verbal disagreement that turned physical, asserting that she attacked him and hit him in the face with a remote control. In self-defense, he claimed to have grabbed her by the shirt and throat. During the 4 years that police were investigating the case, Justine's family fought hard to ensure there would be some form of justice. Her father, Steve Swartz, said, "In addition to wanting Justine's case solved, the other thing we sincerely hope is that no one else gets hurt before that happens." What do you think of today's story? Write your opinion about this case in the comments. I thank you for your attention and recommend subscribing to the channel, as well as clicking on the bell to not miss new videos that are released daily. Take care of yourself and your loved ones. See you soon.
On Sunday, June 20th, 2004, 13-year-old Amanda Lanke spent the day with her close friend, 13-year-old Jessica Foster. It was Amanda's first holiday back in White Cloud, Michigan, since relocating to Florida with her family. Reunited after many months, the 2 girls planned to have a sleepover at Jessica's house that night. But the next morning, Jessica woke to find her bedroom window wide open and Amanda missing. It was initially assumed that Amanda had simply run away. However, that theory was rubbished 2 weeks later with the discovery of Amanda's body. Who killed Amanda Lanke and why? How did a fun teenage sleepover end in tragedy? Hello and welcome back to M7 Crime Story Time, where we cover solved, unsolved, and twisted cases from around the world. But before we delve any further, please take a moment to show your support by subscribing to our channel, liking our videos, and clicking on that notification bell to receive the latest videos straight to your inbox. White Cloud is a small town on the banks of the White River in Nueco County, Michigan. With a population of just 1,479, the community is close-knit and friendly. It's a designated trail town, as many visitors and hikers from the North Country Trail often take a break in White Cloud to reconnect with people after several days spent in nature. The area is often rather safe, with violent crimes at just 2.78%. The residents rarely find themselves looking over their shoulders, and children play unsupervised without fear of danger. In the summer of 2004, Amanda Lanke was in the very same town visiting her grandparents and friends when tragedy struck, leaving the community reeling for years afterward. Amanda Nicole Lanke was born on June 7, 1991, in White County, Tennessee. She was raised by her single mother, Victoria Lanke, and had a large family of 2 brothers and 4 sisters. When Amanda was still very young, her family moved to White Cloud, Michigan, to live closer to her maternal grandparents, Tom and Linda Verhoy. Amanda was described as a child who loved to goof around and make jokes. She enjoyed school and excelled at her studies. Amanda also had musical talents and played several instruments. As she grew, she started to enjoy dancing, writing poetry, and experimenting with makeup, as all young girls do. She was also very sociable and maintained close friendships with several kids from White Cloud, despite her family moving once again to Spring Hill, Florida in early 2004. She missed her friends and grandparents after the move and returned to the small town during her summer holidays in 2004. She planned to catch up with old friends and enjoy the long summer days, even as she prepared to return to the 8th grade at Powell Middle School in Florida in the fall of the same year. However, Amanda would never experience the life she looked forward to having. On the night of Sunday, June 20th, 2004, Amanda and her friend Jessica planned to sleep over after having spent most of the day together. Amanda bid her grandparents goodbye and went along to Jessica's house, where she was always welcomed. After dinner, both girls went up to Jessica's room, where they spent some time listening to music, dancing, and doing makeup. It was late at night when the girls decided to sleep, determined to continue their fun the next day. Amanda and Jessica had spent the entire day enjoying each other's company after months of separation. Unbeknownst to either them or their parents, their sleepover was about to take a drastic turn. When Jessica woke up early on Monday, June 21st, 2004, she noticed that her bedroom window was wide open. Even stranger was that Amanda was not in the bedroom. Jessica decided to go looking for Amanda around the house. She walked to the kitchen and living room, but there was no sign of Amanda. She then went outside, but still didn't find her friend. Not knowing what to do, Jessica went to her parents and told them Amanda was missing. Her parents followed her to her bedroom, where all of Amanda's belongings were still lying around. Jessica's parents immediately called Amanda's grandparents and the parents of their mutual friends to ask if Amanda had somehow gone to any of their houses. However, no one had seen Amanda since Sunday. Amanda's grandparents decided it was time to contact the police and report her missing. They were stumped by her sudden disappearance, as she would only have been wearing her pajamas. They could find no reason for Amanda to just disappear in the middle of a sleepover. The Newaygo County Sheriff's Office first questioned Jessica, inquiring if Amanda had mentioned any plans to go somewhere. Jessica explained that Amanda hadn't told her anything about making plans to leave. She also told police that she didn't hear anything during the night that would have woken her up. Jessica's family was also questioned, and her parents and siblings also told police they hadn't heard anything strange during the night. Investigators then questioned the neighbors. No one reported hearing any strange noises at night or seeing unusual activity in the area. The investigation had hit a brick wall, with no possible witnesses to a possible crime. Given that the leads had dried up so quickly, investigators concluded that Amanda may have simply run away. Amanda's grandparents and mother argued that she was not the kind of girl to just run away from home. Investigators reasoned that they'd questioned the Foster family and searched the house. There had been no signs of a struggle, and the people living in the house had not been disturbed by any unusual activity that night. They explained that the possibility of Amanda being abducted was unlikely, as not even the neighbors had seen or heard anything suspicious during the night. Amanda's family were outraged and began their own search. They started putting up posters with Amanda's information around the town, hoping that someone would reach out and confirm they'd seen Amanda. News of her disappearance burned through the town like a wildfire. The police received several calls from residents who reported spotting a girl who resembled Amanda. But none of these tips led anywhere, and Amanda's whereabouts remained a mystery. Working on their theory of Amanda being a runaway teen, investigators requested a search of Amanda's computer. Social chat sites on the internet had become a new way of communication for teenagers, and they believed Amanda may have made a friend online. Investigators theorized that Amanda may have decided to run away with that person. A search of her computer revealed that Amanda had been chatting to a young man online who went by the name Schizokilla. The chats between them, however, discussed everyday things that happened in their lives. There was no mention of any plan to meet each other or run away together. But in a town as small as White Cloud, news of the online friend spread quickly, and soon even the residents believed that Amanda had simply run away with her online friend. The investigation continued as a possible runaway case. The sheriff's office didn't see the need to involve any other departments, like the Federal Bureau of Investigation, as they'd ruled out the kidnapping angle. They did make a public appeal for Amanda's online friend to come forward and provide any information regarding her disappearance. Amanda's family believed that something sinister had happened to her. They resorted to searching the town and making appeals to the public through the media. They explained that Amanda had not taken any of her belongings with her when she disappeared. Her clothes and bag had still been in Jessica's bedroom when she disappeared. Her family also told the media that she had no reason to run away. Amanda had been yearning to visit White Cloud since moving to Florida and had been extremely excited to reunite with her friends and grandparents that summer. Days turned to weeks without any breakthroughs in the search for Amanda. Investigators continued to pursue the online friend, but they never got any response to the request for information. All leads were coming to a halting dead end without any sign of Amanda. 2 weeks later, however, the missing person search was about to take a dark and disturbing twist. On the morning of Monday, July 5th, 2004, police received a distressing call from mushroom pickers at the Manistee National Forest, 10 kilometers away from White Cloud. They'd stumbled upon a badly decomposing body hidden in the shrubbery. When police arrived, they instantly identified the body based on the description of the pajamas. Lying in the field was Amanda Lanke. Her body was transported to the medical examiner's office as investigators combed the field looking for any clues that could identify her killer. There was no murder weapon near the crime scene, nor were there any tracks that could be used to trace the movements of suspects. The lack of blood at the crime scene, despite the damage done to Amanda's body, also indicated to police that she may have been murdered somewhere else and then left in the forest. An autopsy confirmed that it was Amanda who had been found deceased, and also revealed that she'd suffered several blows to the head by a blunt object, possibly a pipe or a baseball bat. The severity of the blows had broken her skull into pieces. Based on the rate of decomposition, her time of death was determined to be the very night she disappeared from the sleepover. Investigators were left speechless. The entire time they'd been investigating Amanda's disappearance as a runaway teen case, when in fact the young girl had been murdered and left in a forest 10 kilometers away from White Cloud. They returned to their notes and began questioning the people that knew Amanda and her family. They conducted over 400 interviews and included the use of polygraph tests to weed out anyone who may have been lying. DNA samples were taken from everyone who was questioned, and hundreds of tests were conducted, but there was no close match to any evidence found on Amanda's body. Investigators then decided to look back into the online friend as a possible suspect. This was compounded by the fact that the online handle of Amanda's chatroom friend included the word killer. There was still no way to identify who Amanda had been talking to online. Furthermore, the correspondence between the two suggested that they were just friends. They'd never discussed meeting in reality. Investigators eventually returned part of Amanda's remains to her family for burial. They still needed to keep some of her remains in order to conduct the investigation. A memorial service for Amanda was held at the White Cloud Chapel, Michigan, on July 10, 2004. She was laid to rest at the Michigan Memorial Park Cemetery in Detroit on July 11, 2004. As Amanda's family said their tearful goodbyes, the Newaygo County Sheriff's Office worked hard behind the scenes to find her killer. Having conducted interviews with those closest to Amanda, investigators began looking through the evidence they'd collected. This included the clothes and other items she'd taken with her to the Foster house that fateful night. Among the belongings, they found a diary belonging to Amanda. The contents of the diary would turn the investigation to a different and disturbing angle. Shortly before disappearance and murder, Amanda had written down alarming accounts of harassment in her diary. The information was very detailed, but the problem was that many pages had been ripped out. Investigators believed that Amanda had identified the man who'd been troubling her, but the identity of the person who had ripped the pages out remained a mystery. Investigators knew that teenage girls often talked to their close friends about things they wrote in their personal journals. Based on this idea, they decided to question Amanda's closest friends again. When asked if Amanda had mentioned anything about abuse or harassment to them, her friends immediately admitted that Amanda had spoken about a man who'd been troubling her. This new information hinted at a very dark twist in the case. Amanda's friends revealed the name of the man who'd been harassing her. The revelation was disturbing. It was a name that was familiar to the police, and it was someone who was already closely linked to the case. The man was Cecil Wallace Sr., the stepfather of Jessica Foster, and the man whose house Amanda had been staying at when she disappeared. But investigators could not rely entirely on the claims made by Amanda's friends. There was no substantial evidence against Cecil. No DNA had been found on Amanda or at the crime scene. A search of Cecil's house hadn't revealed any signs of a struggle. Investigators were also stumped about how Cecil could have committed such a crime while his family slept in the house, undisturbed and clueless. Cecil Wallace Sr. became a person of interest, but investigators knew they needed to find more evidence to label him as a suspect. Cecil Wallace Sr. lived in White Cloud, Michigan with his second wife, 2 stepdaughters, and his own son. He was employed at Big Daddy's 24-hour towing in Big Rapids, Michigan. Cecil didn't seem to have a criminal record. The only piece of information police found was that Cecil had been involved in an accident 5 years earlier in 1999. A background check into the accident led police to an intriguing discovery. Cecil's accident report was considered falsified. According to the report, he'd met with an accident while trying to avoid a deer on the road. However, the truth was that he'd been driving while under the influence and had an accident. The person who had falsified the report was a woman named Candace Wallace Baumgartner. a White Cloud police officer, and the sister of Cecil Wallace Sr. Candace had subsequently been fired from her former police department for falsifying the accident report, but had somehow landed a job as a police officer in White Cloud. The case was beginning to heat up. The whole family, including Cecil, was once again questioned about the night of June 20th, 2004, but it seemed there was nothing more they could offer other than their original accounts. Candace too was questioned, but she merely explained that she told her brother and his family to answer questions truthfully. She was listed as a consultant to the family during the investigation. Following these revelations, though, investigators served over 9 subpoenas to Cecil and his family and continued to conduct interviews and searches of their property. But no new evidence was ever found. There was nothing more that could be done. Everything to this point was purely circumstantial. Investigations into Amanda's murder continued for the next 4 years. Meanwhile, the residents of the small town had begun to believe the rumors that were circulating about Cecil and his family. Residents believed that Cecil's sister Candace was helping to cover up Amanda's murder. The family was becoming infamous in the community, and their home had been vandalized on multiple occasions. Police received several complaints from Cecil and his family regarding their treatment in the community. Despite measures to stop these attacks, everyone in White Cloud believed he was a murderer. Investigators tried hard to find any leads that could help solve Amanda's murder, and in turn, stop the harassment of Cecil and his family. In 2008, investigators turned to the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children in Washington, D.C. to help with the investigation. They believed that the officials could lend a fresh perspective and uncover some other clues among the case files, leading them to a possible suspect. Although the new team of investigators read through all the material provided and reviewed the case and the documents, their conclusion was the same. There was no concrete evidence to point to Cecil Wallace Sr. as a suspect, and so no warrant of arrest could be issued for him. By 2008, the case had reached a dead end. It remained cold until 2011, when an unexpected call uncovered new secrets and changed the course of the investigation. A 27-year-old woman from Texas contacted the White Cloud Police Department regarding information about Cecil. The woman told police that she was a former resident of White Cloud and had been following the Amanda Lanke case online. She told police that when she discovered that Amanda had been staying at Cecil's house on the night of her disappearance, she knew without a doubt that he was the man responsible for the young girl's murder. The woman alleged to have been a former victim of Cecil herself. However, what she said next put the investigation into yet another twist. She'd been abused by Cecil back in 1998 when she was only 13 years old, the same age as Amanda. The similarities were eerily identical to that of Amanda's case. The woman had been a friend of Cecil's older stepdaughter and had stayed over at the Wallace house one evening. In the middle of the night, she alleged that Cecil entered the bedroom and proceeded to assault both her and his stepdaughter. Afterward, he threatened them to remain quiet about the incident. She explained that Cecil was a very intimidating man, and she and her friend had been too terrified to go to the police.
If I would have went to police with what he did to me back then, I don't think I'd be alive today. And then I also think that if I would have said something, maybe she'd be here today.
But after learning of Amanda's tragic story, she felt it was her duty to tell police the truth, to help put Cecil behind bars and away from future victims. She provided police with a written statement, which was used by investigators as evidence of her abuse at the hands of Cecil Wallace Sr. Armed with this new information, investigators approached the case from a different angle. They now turned to questioning women in and around White Cloud regarding their interactions with Cecil Wallace Sr. Several women came forward with stories of Cecil's inappropriate behavior. These events had occurred between 1999 and 2002, and most of his victims said they were between the ages of 13 and 16 at the time. Cecil Wallace Sr. was aged 43 when he was arrested at his home on October 28, 2011.
Investigators today arrested 43-year-old Cecil Wallace Sr. They charged him with 3 counts of criminal conduct for crimes involving 2 girls who were between 13 and 16 at the time, but are now adults. The crimes happened between 1998 and 2002. Sheriff Mike Mercer and Prosecutor Robert Springstead told me today that they consider Cecil Wallace Sr. a person of interest in the murder of Amanda Lanke.
He was charged with assaulting several women and was officially named as a suspect in Amanda Lanke's murder. This time, investigators were positive he was responsible for Amanda's death, as the allegations made by his victims were overwhelming. At Cecil's preliminary hearing, Newaygo County Prosecutor Robert Springstead put forward all the evidence his team had uncovered during their investigation. Cecil was charged with 3 counts of first-degree assault, He was held on a bond of $150,000 at the Newaygo County Jail. A second hearing date was set for November 10, 2011. Cecil was able to raise the funds for his bail with assistance from family and was eventually released to await his second court date. He resumed his normal daily routine, even returning to work at the towing company. Local residents, however, were unhappy with the situation. They took to protesting outside Cecil's workplace by holding placard demonstrations. There were many incidents when residents demanded that Cecil be fired and called him out for being a predator in their community. But the case was heading toward yet another unexpected twist. Cecil did not show up at the appointed time for his hearing on November 10, 2011. He was declared a wanted man by the county for failing to make an appearance. At the same time, though, his family reported him missing after they were unable to contact him. They tried to contact him at work, but no one had seen him since the day before. Police remained on the lookout for Cecil, and a few hours later, his car was found on the outskirts of White Cloud in a remote location near Goodwill Township in Michigan. When police searched the area, they found Cecil. He had ended his own life.
Off the top tonight's stunning developments. A West Michigan man tied to the disappearance and murder of a teenage girl is dead.
Following Cecil's death, the investigation into Amanda's murder continued. A search warrant was issued for Cecil's home. Without a living suspect, investigators had to rely on finding physical evidence that could link him to Amanda's murder. Investigators examined every corner of the home, including breaking through drywall and removing floorboards to test for forensic evidence. But they never did find any physical evidence that could link Cecil to Amanda's murder. Cecil was therefore never formally charged with Amanda's murder, and the case is not officially closed. The last of Amanda's remains, which the police had used to aid the investigation, were returned to her family in 2013. Her family arranged for a reburial so that Amanda could finally be at complete peace. Meanwhile, the investigation turned from Cecil to his sister Candace. If Cecil was not going to pay for his crime, the police were at least sure to weed out the corruption within the Wallace family. Investigators wanted to know how much of a role Candace had played in the cover-up of Amanda's death. In August 2012, Candace was arrested and charged with intentionally misleading the case. Investigators discovered that Candace had been covering up for her brother for years. She coached him on various ways to get rid of evidence, how to properly wipe his fingerprints off surfaces, and how to plant false DNA evidence. During the back-and-forth hearings of Candace, investigators further discovered that she'd lied about her involvement in the investigation. Candace denied having any involvement with the case or evidence. She alleged she'd never been at the crime scene, but other officers contradicted her. They said she had, in fact, used her police ID to cross over the taped areas where Amanda's body was discovered, and therefore was at the crime scene. In 2004, she took a plea deal and pleaded guilty to the perjury charges. She was also ordered to take a polygraph test with regard to her involvement in Amanda's case, but the results were never released.
New developments today in the decade-old case of Amanda Lanke. Developments her family hopes will lead to a breakthrough in the murder of the 13-year-old Newaygo County girl.
Today, the suspect's sister, a former cop, admitted to lying in the investigation, and now she's going to jail.
She was sentenced to serve 30 consecutive weekends in jail. To this day, Candace continues to claim that her brother Cecil is innocent and that she did not cover up for him. For Amanda's mother, Victoria, the most heartbreaking aspect was that Amanda never got to grow up and experience the life that awaited her. Victoria became a voice for change and started a campaign aimed at changing the way law enforcement handles child disappearances. The campaign's aim was to ban the term runaway and ensure that every disappearance of a child was given the highest priority. This was done to ensure that protocols were in place for immediate action. Victoria spent special occasions in White Cloud, Michigan, in memory of Amanda and the life she lived. Most recently, a memorial service was held on June 7, 2021, in memory of what would have been Amanda's 30th birthday. Amanda's murder continues to remain a mystery in White Cloud, Michigan. Residents still believe that Cecil Wallace Sr. is guilty of the crime, but the lack of physical evidence creates a conundrum. Was Cecil Wallace really guilty? Or was he driven by false accusations and shame to take his own life?